Hello, happy Tolkien Day. I thought this would be fun because I like Lord of the Rings a lot, and also I feel like I've actually never participated fully in Tolkien Reading Day specifically. So I thought this would be a good excuse for me to actually read Tolkien on Tolkien Reading Day. So here we are. And with it being Tolkien Reading Day, there have been a couple Lord of the Rings esque announcements today that I'm very excited about. Mostly, I'm very excited about the Lord of the Rings Lego that got announced today. As you can tell, I already have some of the pieces of the Rivendell Lego, which I treasure and think is probably one of the most beautiful Lego sets I've ever seen. But I'm really excited about this new one. Um, they've done a new Shire Lego that they announced today. I've been seeing leaks of this one for a little bit, so I'm excited that it's legit. um, they did have when the Hobbit movies came out, they had a bag end set that was a lot smaller than this is. Um, and included, like a younger Bilbo and I think a Gandalf, but like no Frodo, no Sam, no Merry Pippin back here because, it's for the Hobbit, right? Um, so I'm very excited about this Lego. And something they did that was really fun is they posted a like an animated video with the Lego of Sean Astin who plays Sam narrating it. That's really, really cute. I highly recommend it if that sounds fun to you. And as part of the promotional, I got this. Oh, that's not it. They have this picture, which to me helps me get an idea of the size. So I have that part of the Lego next to him behind me. It's where the microphone is. So it's not quite as big, like it's wider than that piece, it looks like, but not quite as tall, which is honestly fine. Um, but you've got the tree with the lights on it, and then there's Bilbo here, and then you've got the awning and the horse. I don't think I have a Lego horse. Maybe it's time for me to have a Lego horse. Oh, I should have picked out a picture with that has the lineup of all the figures. Here, I'll pull that up because I think that's fun. Because part of why I like the uh, Rivendell one so much is it comes with so many great what's it called? The guys, the little guys. But so this is the back of it. It's kind of small, I'm realizing. But you've got bag end in here and the little fireplace and everything. And there's a dragon. Oh my gosh, I'm just noticing that. There's a dragon. And then you've got Sam and Rosie, Bilbo. Oh, there's some kind of something going on here where he disappears. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. But that is a big moment in Fellowship, so that's fun. And then you've got Merry and Pippin. Hello, how are you? Welcome. I'm just geeking out over the new Lord of the Rings Lego that was announced today. And the sign looks so fun. What does that say? 23 centimeters. Isn't that fun? This is the back of it, so it's probably not a great picture, but here's the front of it. Maybe it'll be a little bit easier to see, but they just announced this today. I've seen leaks of it, so I was like not sure if it was like legit. But it is real. Yeah, it looks like you've got Sam, Frodo, Bilbo, Rosie, Merry, Pippin, and then Mr. Proudfoot and his wife, I think. Yeah, it's 200 something. Let me find out for you because I am actually curious about that too. It is Okay. It doesn't come. Oh, doesn't mean look at lego.com. Okay. Okay. So I'm looking at the website. It comes out April 5th. So that's next Friday or Saturday. It costs $269.99 in US currency. So $270 basically, which is less than the Rivendell one. The Rivendell is like 500, but it is smaller. Yeah, it's a lot. That Lego tax. But listen, it costs the same as the Deku tree, I feel like. Hold on, let me. It's like way zoomed in. I did this to myself. The Deku tree costs more. That I would love to have that. I think the idea of the Deku tree Lego. Here, I'll show you what this one looks like. And this is way smaller. This one costs $300. That's crazy to me. It almost makes it almost feels justifiable. Almost. But yeah, that is a lot. Nice. Yeah. I don't think I've seen a lot of the Minecraft ones. Do they still make those? I feel like they... Oh, they still have them. That's fun. They're a lot more... Ooh, that's cool. A little crafting table with stuff in it. I did not... Oh my gosh, the fox! That's so cute! I didn't mean to make this a Minecraft thing. Yeah, they are cheaper. You're right. Maybe the rights to... And the turtle house! Oh my gosh, I want to like build that in Minecraft. That's way cute. And the Fox Lodge. I just need to play more Minecraft. I really like Minecraft. Oh, and my favorite thing that part of my favorite things about this Lego is that if you buy it, you get a free set, and it's something no one asked for. I don't know who the target audience is for this Lego set, and it's a small one. You get a Smeagol and what's his name? I can't remember it right now, but the guy that he kills for the ring as a Lego set. Who is asking for this? I think it's so funny. And you even got like kind of evil looking Smeagol up here. And then what's his name under the water finding the ring. It's like a really important moment, obviously, in like the mythos of the Lord of the Rings. But like, why this? So anyway, if you buy the Shire Lego, you have this incredible moment to look forward to. I don't know why this is so funny to me. It just seems like of all the moments in Lord of the Rings to Legoify, why would you do the one where there's like a murder that happens? I don't know. I mean, it's too funny to me. That's true. Oh wow, that's crazy. I didn't realize that they made special versions of Legos like that, but I guess that makes sense. I know people sell like retired Lego sets for like way expensive after the fact once they're like no longer available to everybody. So I've definitely seen that before. I did bring the Hobbit with me. I have it right here. This is my nicest version of the Hobbit that I have. It's got pictures that are in color, which I really like, and they're all art by Tolkien himself. And it has some stuff that isn't included in the original publication, like this, which is really fun, or there was another one I just saw. Like this. So I thought this would be a fun one to read from. That's true. I should have held on to my childhood Legos. I have no idea where they are now. But alas. Oh, and it also comes with the map, which is really fun. The moon map, where they get the moonstone translation from Elrond, in the Hobbit. And if I don't have a light, I have my light over here. Oh, you know what? I'll get my phone flashlight. There's written on the back the runes. So if you put a light up to it. Do I have a flashlight readily available? You can kind of see them through the... I'm like blowing it out, but you can see them. So I really like this map also. It feels very Hobbit-y. I mean, Bilbo really likes maps. So I feel like there was another thing. What is this? We will find out together. Oh, this is like a map of the journey. So you've got... I love the smog up here. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the Mirkwood. The Lonely Mountain over here. Rivendell over here. Hobbiton is off the map. It's too far. But anyway, I'm just going to start from the beginning because I think the beginning of The Hobbit is just really charming. And see how far we get. There's Skyrim books. I did not know this. Okay. This is the foreword. I don't want to read the foreword. Wow, this is where the book actually starts. We're this far. Oh, and also it has the runes on the side too, like this. I love fun editions like this. Most of the copies of The Hobbit that I have one behind me. Kind of this infamous one from the 80s. I've bought from thrift stores because I like collecting old ones. But this is the only one I bought new. So, I actually haven't read from it because it's kind of a pain to hold. But if I have a disc, it's fine. So, I am feeling a little intimidated because the last time I was reading this or, engaging with The Hobbit, I was listening to Andy Serkis's version of this of The Hobbit, and he does an amazing job. I am not as talented as he is, but he's a professional actor, and I'm not, so it's fine. Okay. Chapter 1. An Unexpected Party. I love this first line. In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole filled with ends of worms and an oozy smell, nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing in it to sit down on or eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. It had a perfectly round door like a porthole, painted green with a shiny yellow brass knob in the exact middle. The door opened on a tube-shaped hall like a tunnel, a very comfortable tunnel without smoke, with paneled walls and floors tiled and carpeted, provided with polished chairs and lots for pegs. Lots and lots of pegs for hats and coats. The Hobbit was very fond of visitors. The tunnel wound on and on, going fairly, but not quite straight into the side of the hill. The hill, as many people for miles around called it, and many little round doors opened out of it, first on one side and then on another. No going upstairs for the Hobbit. Bedrooms, bathrooms, cellars, pantries, lots of these, wardrobes. He had whole rooms devoted to clothes. Kitchens, dining rooms, all were on the same floor, and indeed on the same passage. The best rooms were all on the left-hand side going in, for these were the only ones to have windows. Deep-set round windows looking over his garden, and meadows beyond, sloping down to the river. I love that. I would love to live in a hobbit hole. That would be like my ideal. This hobbit was a very well-to-do hobbit, and his name was Baggins. The Bagginses had lived in the neighborhood of the hill for time out of mind, and people considered them very respectable, not only because most of them were rich, but also because they had never had any adventures or did anything unexpected. You could tell what a Baggins would say on any question without the bother of asking him. This is a story of how a Baggins had an adventure and found himself doing and saying things altogether unexpected. He may have lost the neighbors' respect, but he gained, well, you will see whether he gained anything in the end. And then I've got this fun art. It's not, like, if I bring it closer, it won't focus, but you've got these are all Tolkien, so some of them aren't complete and they're more sketches than, like, final renderings, but I love this. Gandalf, spoilers, Gandalf is coming to the door, and Bilbo hanging out on his hobbit hole. One morning early in the quiet of the world. I love that. I wonder, oh, that's what that says there. I was like, I wonder what that says. That is exactly what that says. The mother of our particular hobbit. What is a hobbit? I suppose hobbits need some description nowadays, since they have become rare and shy of the big people, as they call us. They are, or were, a little people, about half our height and smaller than the bearded dwarves. Hobbits have no beards. There is little or no magic about them, except the ordinary everyday sort, which helps them to disappear quietly and quickly when large, stupid folk like you and me come blundering along, making a noise like elephants which they can hear a mile off. They are inclined to be fat in the stomach. They dress in bright colors, chiefly green and yellow, wear no shoes because their feet grow natural blah. It's a good thing I'm not reading an audiobook here. Yes. Oh, thank you. Have a wonderful evening. And yeah, go ahead and watch the movies. I love the movies. I even like the Hobbit movies. I know that might be a hot take, but I think they're fun. Okay, where was I? Start on the sentence I was on. They're inclined to be fat in the stomach. They dress in bright colors, chiefly green and yellow, wear no shoes because their feet grow naturally leather soles, and thick warm brown hair like the stuff on their heads, which is curly. Which I also have brown hair that's curly. It's feeling a little less curly today, but that's okay. Have long, clever brown fingers, good-natured faces, and laugh deep, fruity laughs, especially after dinner, which they have twice a day when they can get it. Now you know enough to go on with. And as I was saying, the mother of this hobbit, of Bilbo Baggins, was the famous Belladonna Took, one of the 3 remarkable daughters of the old Took, head of the hobbits who lived across the water, the small river that ran at the foot of the hill. It is often said, in other families, that long ago one of the Took ancestors must have taken a fairy wife. That was, of course, absurd, but certainly there was still something not entirely hobbit-like about them. And once in a while, members of the Took clan would go and have adventures. They discreetly disappeared, and the family hushed it up, but the fact remained that the Tooks were not as respectable as the Bagginses, though they were undoubtedly richer. Not that Belladonna Took ever had any adventures after she became Miss Bungo Baggins. Bungo, that was Bilbo's father, built the most luxurious hobbit hole for her, and partly with her money, that was that's funny, and partly with her money, that was to be found either under the hill or over the hill across the water, and there they remained to the end of their days. Still, it is probable that Bilbo, her only son, although he looked and behaved exactly like a second edition of his solid and comfortable father, got something a bit queer in his makeup from the Took side, something that only waited for a chance to come out. The chance never arrived until Bilbo Baggins was grown up, being about 50 years old or so, and living in the beautiful hobbit hole built by his father, which I have just described for you, until he had in fact apparently settled down immovably. By some curious chance, one morning long ago, in the quiet of the world when there was less noise and more green, and the hobbits were still numerous and prosperous, and Bilbo Baggins was standing at his door after breakfast, smoking an enormous long wooden pipe that reached nearly down to his woolly toes, neatly brushed, Gandalf came by. Gandalf! If you had... I love the way he writes this one. I love the other Lord of the Rings books, but the storyteller in me really loves this one because it feels like Tolkien is like telling this story to like his kids. And I think that's intentional. Like, it's definitely more feels more like something you would hear like by a fire or something, or like when you're a kid when your parents read you something. And so it makes it more fun to read. Not that I've ever read The Lord of the Rings out loud. I guess I can't say that I have. Okay. If you had only heard a quarter of what I had heard about him, and I have only heard very little of all that there is to hear, you would be prepared for any sort of remarkable tale. Tales and adventures sprouted up all over the place, wherever he went, in the most extraordinary fashion. He had not been down that way under the hill for ages and ages, not since his friend the old Took died, in fact, and the hobbits had almost forgotten what he looked like. He had been away over the hill and across the water on businesses of his own since they were all small hobbit boys and hobbit girls. All that the unsuspecting Bilbo saw that morning was an old man with a staff. He had a tall, pointed blue hat, a long gray coat, a silver scarf over which his long white beard hung below his waist, and immense black boots. This conversation is so funny. I love the way they do this in the Peter Jackson version of the movie. "Good morning," said Bilbo, and he meant it. The sun was shining, the grass was very green, but Gandalf looked at him from under long bushy eyebrows that stuck out further than the brim of his shady hat. "What do you mean?" he said. "Do you wish me a good morning, or mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not, or that you feel good this morning, or that it is a morning to be good on?" "All of them at once," said Bilbo, "and a very fine morning for a pipe of tobacco out of doors into the bargain." I don't know what that means. "If you have a pipe about you, sit down and have a fill of mine. There's no hurry. We have all the day before us." Then Bilbo sat down on a seat by his door, crossed his legs, and blew out a beautiful gray ring of smoke that sailed up into the air without breaking and floated away over the hill. "Very pretty," said Gandalf, "but I have no time to blow smoke rings this morning. I am looking for someone to share in an adventure that I am arranging, and it is very difficult to find anyone." "I should think so, in these parts. We are plain, quiet folk and have no use for adventures. Nasty, disturbing, uncomfortable things. Make you late for dinner. I can't think of what anybody sees in them," said our Mr. Baggins, and stuck one thumb behind his braces and blew out another even bigger smoke ring. Then he took out his morning letters and began to read, pretending to take no more notice of the old man. He had decided that he was not quite his sort and wanted him to go away. But the old man did not move. He stood leaning on his stick and gazing at the hobbit without saying anything, till Bilbo got quite uncomfortable and even a little cross. "Good morning," he said at last. "We don't want any adventures here, thank you. You might try over the hill or across the water." By this he meant that the conversation was at an end. "What a lot of things you do use good morning for," said Gandalf. Now you mean that you want to get rid of me, and that it won't be good till I move off." Before we continue, I've got another picture. It's kind of hard to see, I'm sorry, but they've got the Hobbit hole, little trees, and then a tiny Gandalf. He's so little and cute. He's got a blue hat. Anyway, I love it. It just says Gandalf as the caption here. "Not at all, my dear sir. Let me see. I don't think I know your name." Yes, my dear sir. I do know your name, Mr. Bilbo Baggins. And you do not know mine, though you don't remember me. Oh, and you do know my name, though you don't remember that I belong to it. I am Gandalf. And Gandalf means me. To think that I should have lived to be good morninged by Belladonna Took's son, as if selling buttons at the door. Gandalf, good gracious me. Not the wandering wizard that gave old Took a pair of magic diamond studs that fastened themselves and never came undone until ordered. Not the fellow who used to tell such wonderful tales at parties about dragons and goblins and giants and the rescue of princesses and the unexpected luck of widows' sons. Not the man that used to make such particularly excellent fireworks. I remember those. Old Took used to have them on Midsummer's Eve. Splendid. They used to go up like great lilies and snapdragons and... What is that? Lamburnums? Is that another flower? I guess I don't know. I burn 'em on fire and hang in the twilight all evening. You will notice already that Mr. Baggins was not quite so prosy as he liked to believe. Also, that he was very fond of flowers. Dear me, he went on, not the Gandalf who was responsible for so many quiet lads and lasses going off into the blue for mad adventures. So he already had this reputation. I know we joke about how Gandalf, would do this with hobbits and, send them off, but because he already had that reputation before even the Hobbit starts. Love that. Anything from climbing trees to visiting elves or sailing in ships, sailing to other shores. Bless me, life used to be quite you used to upset things badly in these parts once upon a time. I beg your pardon, but I had no idea you were still in business. Where else should I be? Said the wizard. All the same, I am pleased to find you remember something about me. You seem to remember my fireworks kindly at any rate, and that is not without hope. Indeed, for your old grandfather Took's sake, and for the sake of poor Belladonna, I will give you what you asked for. I beg your pardon, I haven't asked for anything. Yes, you have, twice now. My pardon. I'll give it you. In fact, I will go so far as to send you on this adventure. Very amusing for me, very good for you, and profitable too, very likely, if you ever get over it. Sorry, I don't want any adventures, thank you. Not today. I love him, he's panicking here. Sorry, I don't want any adventures today, thank you. Not today. Good morning. But please come to tea anytime you like. And then ever be a hospitable person. He can't even tell someone he wants them to go away without also inviting them over. Why not tomorrow? Come tomorrow. Goodbye. With that, the hobbit turned and scuttled into his round green door and shut it as quickly as he dared, not to seem rude. Wizards, after all, are wizards. What on earth did I ask him to tea for? He said to himself as he went into the pantry. He had only just had breakfast, but he thought a cake or two and a drink of something would do him good after this fright. It was very relatable. Gandalf, in the meantime, was still standing outside the door and laughing long but quietly. After a while, he stepped up and with the spike of his staff scratched a queer sign on the hobbit's beautiful green front door. Then he strode away, just about time when Bilbo was finishing his second cake and beginning to think that he had escaped adventures very well. The next day, he had almost forgotten about Gandalf. He did not remember things very well unless he put them down in his engagement table. Like this, Gandalf tea Wednesday. Yesterday, he had been too flustered to do anything of the kind. I'm the same way. If I don't write something down, it's not going to happen. It doesn't exist. Just before tea time, there was a tremendous ring on the front doorbell, and then he remembered. He rushed and put on the kettle and put out another cup and saucer and an extra cake or two and ran at the door. I am so sorry to keep you waiting, he was going to say, but then he saw it was not Gandalf at all. It was a dwarf with a blue beard tucked into a golden belt and very brown eyes under his dark green hood. As soon as the door was opened, he pushed inside just as oh my gosh. As soon as the door was opened, he pushed inside just as if he had been expected. He hung his hooded cloak on the nearest peg, and Dwalin, at your service, he said with a long bow. Bilbo Baggin at yours, said the hobbit, too surprised to ask any questions for the moment. When the silence that followed became unbearable or uncomfortable, he added, I'm just about to take tea. Pray come and have some with me. A little stiff, perhaps, but he meant it kindly. And what would you do if an uninvited dwarf came and hung up his things in your hall without a word of explanation? They had not been at table long. In fact, they had hardly reached the third cake. I like how he's measuring time and how much cake they consume. 3 cakes seems like a lot of cake, but he's saying like that this like no time passing at all. Excuse me, said the hobbit, and he was off to the door. So you have got here at last. And that's what he was going to say to Gandalf this time, but it was not Gandalf. Instead, there was a very old-looking dwarf on the step with a white beard and a scarlet hood. and he too hopped inside as soon as the door was open, just as if he had been invited. "I see they have begun to arrive already," he said when he caught sight of Dwalin's green hood hanging up. He hung his red one next to it, and "Balin, at your service," he said with his hand on his breast. "Thank you," said Bilbo with a gasp. It was not the correct thing to say, but "they have begun to arrive" had flustered him badly. He liked visitors, and he liked to know them before they arrived, and he preferred to ask them himself. He had a horrible thought that the cakes might run short, and then he, as the host, he knew his duty and stuck to it, however painful, might have to go without. "Come along in and have some tea," he managed to say after taking a deep breath. "A little beer would suit me better, if it is all the same to you, my good sir," said Balin with the white beard. "But I don't mind some cake, seed cake, if you have any." "Lots," Bilbo found himself answering, as to his own surprise he found himself scuttling off to the cellar to fill a pint beer mug, and then to a pantry to fetch 2 beautiful round seed cakes which he had baked that afternoon for his after-supper morsel. When he got back, Balin and Dwalin were talking at the table like old friends. As a matter of fact, they were brothers. Bilbo plumped down the beer and the cake in front of them, when a loud ring came at the bell again, then another ring. Gandalf for certain this time, he thought as he puffed along the passage, but it was not. It was 2 more dwarves, both with blue hoods, silver belts, and yellow beards, and each of them carried a bag of tools and a spade. In they hopped as soon as the door began to open. Bilbo was hardly surprised at all. "What can I do for you, my dwarves?" he said. "Kili at your service," said the one, "and Fili," added the other. They both swept off their blue hoods and bowed. "At yours and your families," replied Bilbo, remembering his manners this time. "Dwalin and Balin here already, I see," said Kili. "Let us join the throng." "Throng?" Mr. Baggins. "I don't like the sound of that. I really must sit down for a minute and collect my wits and have a drink." He had only just had a sip in the corner while the 4 dwarfs sat around the table and talked about mines and golds and trouble with goblins and the depredations. It was like broken up funky. And lots of other things, which he did not understand and did not want to, for they sounded much too adventurous when ding-dong... Wait. Reading this book aloud is very funny, because I realize things that you never notice, like that his doorbell sound says this. Ding-dong-a-ling-dang. Wait, how do you... Ding-dong-a-ling-dang. That's a mouthful. His bell rang again, as if some naughty little hobbit was trying to pull the handle off. "Someone at the door," he said, blinking. "Some 4, I should say by the sound," said Fili. "Besides, we saw them coming along behind us in the distance." The poor little hobbit sat down in the hall and put his head in his hands, and wondered what had happened, and what was going to happen, and whether they would all stay to supper. Then the bell rang again louder than ever, and he had to run to the door. It was not 4 after all, it was 5. Another dwarf had come along while he was wandering in the hall. He had hardly turned the knob before they were all inside, bowing and saying, "At your service," one after the other. Dori, Nori, Ori, Oin, and Gloin were their names. And very soon 2 purple hoods, a gray hood, a brown hood, and a white hood were hanging on the pegs. And off they marched with their broad hands stuck in their gold and silver belts to join the others. Already it had almost become a throng. Some called for ale, and some for porter, and one for coffee, and all of them for cakes. So the hobbit was kept very busy for a while. A big jug of coffee had just been set in the hearth, the seed cakes were gone, and the dwarves were starting a round of buttered scones, when there came a loud knock. Not a ring, but a hard rat-tat on the hobbit's beautiful green door. Somebody was banging with a stick! Bilbo rushed along the passage, very angry and altogether bewildered and bewildered. This was the most awkward Wednesday he had ever remembered. He pulled open the door with a jerk, and they all fell in, one on top of the other. More dwarfs, 4 more! And there was Gandalf behind, leaning on his staff and laughing. He had made quite a dent on his beautiful door, and he had also, by the way, knocked out the secret mark that he had put there the morning before. "Carefully, carefully," he said. "It is not like you, Bilbo, to keep friends waiting on the mat, and then open the door like a pop gun. Let me introduce Bifur, Boffer, Bombur, and especially Thorin." "At your service," said Bifur, Boffer, Bombur, and Bombur, standing in a row. Then they hung up 2 yellow hoods and a pale green one, and also a sky blue one with a long silver tassel. This last belonged to Thorin, an enormously important dwarf, in fact, no other than the great Thorin Oakenshield himself, who was not at all pleased at falling flat on Bilbo's mount with Bifur, Boffer, and Bomber on top of him. For one thing, Bomber was immensely fat and heavy. That's all we ever learned about Bomber. He's a big guy. Thorin, indeed, was very haughty and said nothing about service. But poor Mr. Baggins said that he was sorry so many times that at last he grunted, "Pray don't mention it," and stopped frowning. "Now we are all here," said Gandalf, looking at the row of 13 hoods, the best detachable party hoods, and his own hat hanging on the pegs. "Quite a merry gathering. I hope there is some left for the latecomers to eat and drink. What's that? Tea? No, thank you. A little red wine, I think, for me." "And for me," said Thorin. "And raspberry jam and an apple tart," said Bifur. "And mince pies and cheese," said Bofur. "And pork pie and salad," said Bomber. "And more cakes and ale and coffee, if you don't mind," called the other dwarfs through the door. "Put on a few eggs, there's a good fellow," Gandalf called after him as the hobbit stumped to the pantries. "And just bring out the cold chicken and pickles." "Seems to know as much about the inside of my larders as I do myself," thought Mr. Baggins, who was feeling positively flummoxed, and was beginning to wonder whether a most wretched adventure had not come right into his house. By the time he had gone, all the bottles and dishes and knives and forks and glasses and plates and spoons and things piled up on big trays. He was getting very hot and red in the face and annoyed. Confiscate and bother these dwarves," he said aloud. "Why don't they come and lend a hand?" Lo and behold, there stood Balin and Dwalin at the door of the kitchen, and Fili and Kili behind them, and before he could say knife, they had whisked the trays and a couple of small tables into the parlor and set out everything afresh. Gandalf at the head of the party with 13 dwarves all around, and Bilbo sat on a stool at the fireside, nibbling at a biscuit. His appetite was quite taken away, and trying not to look as if this was all perfectly ordinary and not in the least an adventure, the dwarfs ate, and talked, and time got on. And at last they pushed their chairs back, and Bilbo made a move to collect the plates and glasses. "I suppose you will all stay to supper," he said in polite, unpressing tones. "Of course," said Thorin. "And after. We shan't get through the business till late. And we must have some music first. Now clear up." Thereupon the 12 dwarfs, not Thorin, he was too important and stayed talking to Gandalf, jumped to their feet and made tall piles of things. Off they went, not waiting for trays, balancing columns of plates, each with a bottle on top with one hand, while the hobbit ran after them, almost squeaking with fright. "Please be careful, and please don't trouble. I can manage." But the dwarves only started to sing. I love this too. The song is in green text. I don't know if you can see that, but I think that's really fun. Should I sing the Peter Jackson version? I really wish the movies had more of the songs. It makes me really sad. This is like one of the only songs that makes it. This and Misty Mountains, which I think is also in this chapter. Yeah, it is. Oh, it's like a page away. Chip the glasses and crack the plates. Wait. No, I'm mixing it up with the other one. I also grew up watching the animated movie. Because they start in the other movie. Blunt the knives, bend the forks. Smash the... They changed it. The bottles and burn the corks. Something. And they crack the plates. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates. Yeah, they change it. Anyway, I'll just read it because I'm confusing myself. Chip the glasses and crack the plates, blunt the knives and bend the forks. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates. Smash the bottles and burn the corks. Cut the cloth and tread on the fat. Pour the milk on the pantry floor. Leave the bones on the bedroom mat. Splash the wine on every door. Dump the crocks in a boiling bowl. Pound them up with a thumping pole. And when you've finished, if any are whole, send them down the hall to roll. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates. So carefully with the plates. That's what I remember from the animated movie. I need to rewatch that. That's a fun one. And of course, they did none of these dreadful things, and everything was cleaned and put away as safe safe and as quick as lightning, while the hobbit was turned around and round in the middle of the kitchen trying to see what they were doing. Then they were back and found Thorin with his feet on the fender, smoking a pipe. He was blowing the most enormous smoke rings, and wherever he told one to go, it went. Up the chimney, or behind the clock on the mantelpiece, or under the table, or round and round the ceiling. But wherever it was not quick enough to escape Gandalf. Pop! He sent a smaller smoke ring from his short clay pipe straight through one of Thorin's. Then Gandalf's smoke ring would go green and come back to hover over the wizard's head. He had a cloud of them about him already, and in the dim light it made him look strange and sorcerous. Bilbo stood still and watched. He loved smoke rings, and then he blushed to think how proudly he'd been yesterday morning of the smoke rings he had sent up the wind over the hill. What's my hair doing? Now for some music, said Thorin. Bring out the instruments. Keely and Feely rushed for their bags and brought back little fiddles. Dori, Nori, and Ori brought out flutes from somewhere inside their coats. Bombard produced a drum from the hall. Biffer and Boffer went out too and came back with clarinets that they had left among the walking sticks. Dwalin and Balin said, Excuse me, I left mine in the porch. Just bring mine with you, said Thorin. They came back with viols. I'm assuming that's like a viola, I would guess. As big as themselves, and with Thorin's harp wrapped in a green cloth. It was a beautiful golden harp, and when Thorin struck it, the music began all at once. So sudden and sweet that Bilbo forgot everything else, and was swept away into dark lands under strange moons, far over the water, and very far from his hobbit hole under the hill. I'm not used to talking this much. You would think after streaming for like a while I would be used to talking a lot, but it just sometimes is not that way. The dark came into the room from the little window that opened in the side of the hill. The firelight flickered. It was April. It's almost April. And they still played on, while the shadow of Gandalf's beard wagged against the wall. The dark filled all the room, and the fire died down, and the shadows were lost, and they still played on. And suddenly, first one and then another began to sing as they played, deep-throated singing of the dwarves in the deep places of their ancient homes. And this is like a fragment of their song, if it can be like their song without their music. This one is more close to what's in the movie. I can't do it. I'm not even starting my own starting now, but I'm just going to read it. To misty mountains cold to dun. I actually have the sheet music for this. Right over there. That's really funny. Okay. We must away ere break of day to seek the pale enchanted gold. The dwarves of yore made mighty spells. Why hammers fell. Oh, thank you for the follow. Welcome. The dwarves of yore made mighty spells, while hammers fell like ringing bells. In places deep where dark things sleep, in hollow halls beneath the fells. For ancient king and elvish lord, there many a gleaming golden hoard. They shaped and wrought, and light they caught, to hide in gems on hilt of sword. On silver necklaces they strung, the flowering stars on crowns they hung. The dragon fire in twisted wire, they meshed the light of moon and sun. Far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day, to claim our long-forgotten gold. Goblets they carved there for themselves, and harps of gold where no man delves. There lay they long, and many a song was sung unheard by men or elves. The pines were roaring on the height, the winds were moaning in the night, the fire was red at flaming spread, the trees like torches blazed with light. The bells were ringing in the dale, and the men looked up with faces pale. The dragon's ire, more fierce than fire, laid low their towers and houses frail. The mountains smoked beneath the moon. The dwarves, they had heard the tramp of doom. They fled their hall to dying fall, beneath his feet, beneath the moon. Far over the misty mountains grim, to dungeons deep and caverns dim, we must away, ere break of day, to win our harps and golds from him. Maybe. Welcome. I hope you're having a wonderful Tolkien reading day. I I figured if I was going to be reading Tolkien, it might be fun to read with other people if they want to join. So I'm having a good time because I've actually never read. I've read The Hobbit a lot, but I've never read it out loud, and it's really feels very natural to read aloud. Oh, thank you. I thought a frog would feel. I have a lot of squishmallows, and I thought a frog would be a good one for a Hobbit reading. I don't know why. Frogs are fun. This is the only frog plush. No, I have 2 frog plushes actually. I have another one. I think it's an old Webkins. And then this one. This is actually my husband's. I gave it to him for Valentine's Day. He thought she was a cute plushie. Excuse me. So I bought the plushie for him, and now Wendy sits here sometimes. Oh, that's fun. I like frogs. They're not my favorite. Sharks are my favorite. I actually put away a lot of my sharks, but sharks are definitely more my thing. I got my Hello Kitty Jaws cup. Yeah, all my sharks are in the other room, but normally they're all out, but I thought I would change it up for today. As they sang, the hobbit felt the love of beautiful things made by hands and by cunning and by magic moving through him. A fierce and a jealous love, the desire of the hearts of dwarves. Then something tookish woke up inside of him, and he wished to go and see the great mountains, and hear the pine trees and the waterfalls, and explore the caves and hear a sword instead of a walking stick. He looked out the window. The stars were in a dark sky above. Where am I? Above trees. The trees. He thought of jewels of the dwarves shining in dark caverns. Suddenly in the wood beyond the water, a flame leapt up. Probably somebody lighting a wood fire, and he thought of plundering dragons settling on his quiet hill and kindling it all to flames. He shuddered, and very quickly he was plain Mr. Baggins of Bagan Underhill again. Oh, really? my Blahaj is in the other room. I just have one, but I do have the big one. I have a Blahaj, I have a Shark Squishmallow, I have a Hello Kitty Jaws plushie where she's wearing like a shark outfit. And then another big shark plushie that's actually bigger than the Blahaj. And then this one. Where am I? Over here. That likes to hang out on the lamp. My husband put that one there as a joke, and I've just left him there because I think it's funny. He got up trembling. He had less than half a mind to fetch the lamp, and more than half a mind to pretend to, and go hide behind the beer barrels in the cellar, and not come out again until all the dwarfs had gone away. Suddenly he found that the music and the singing had stopped, and they were all looking at him with eyes shining in the dark. "Where are you going?" said Thorin in a tone that seemed to show that he guessed both halves of the hobbit's mind. "What about a little light?" said Bilbo apologetically. "We like the dark," said all the dwarves. "Dark for dark business. There are many hours before dawn." "Of course," said Bilbo, and sat down in a hurry. He missed the stool and sat in the fender, knocking over a poker and shovel with a crash. "Hush," said Gandalf. "Let Thorin speak." And this how Thorin began. Oh, I love that. I think of it as a Christmas thing more because, like New Year, that I think of it as like that period between Christmas and New Year's thing because everybody's just like at home and isn't sure what to do with, when you're going to school, you have a lot of time to just kind of do whatever. But when I was a kid, it kind of was like, oh, let's watch Lord of the Rings. Sure, okay. I love that. Gandalf, dwarfs, and Mr. Baggins, we are met together in the house of our friend and fellow conspirator, this most excellent and audacious hobbit. May the hair on his toes never fall out. All praise be to his wine and ale. He paused for breath, and for a polite remark from the hobbit, but the compliments were quite lost on poor Bilbo Baggins, who was wagging his mouth in protest at being called audacious, and worst of all, a fellow conspirator, though no noise came out. He was so flummoxed. So Thorin went on. We are met to discuss our plans, our ways, means, policy, and devices. We shall soon, before the break of day, start on our long journey, a journey from which some of us, or perhaps all of us, except our friend and counselor, the ingenious wizard Gandalf, may never return. It is a solemn moment. Our object is, I take it, well known to all. To the estimable Mr. Baggins, and perhaps to one or two of the younger dwarfs, I think I should be right in naming Keely and Feely, for instance. The exact situation at the moment may require a brief explanation. Nice. But, similar time of year where it's like dark, and cold and nobody wants to go outside. So Lord of the Rings is a good option. That was Thorne's style. He was an important dwarf. If he had been allowed, he probably would have gone on like this until he was out of breath without telling anyone or anything that was not known already. But he was rudely interrupted. Poor Bilbo couldn't bear it any longer. At may never return, he began to feel a shriek coming up inside, and very soon it burst out like a whistle of an engine coming out of a tunnel. All the dwarfs sprang up, knocking over the table. Gandalf struck a blue light on the end of his magic staff, and in its fireworks glare, the poor little hobbit could be seen kneeling at the hearthrug, shaking like a jelly that was melting. Then he fell flat on the floor and kept calling out, struck by lightning, over and over again, and that was all they could get out of him for a long time. So they took him and laid him out of the way on the drawing-room sofa with a drink at his elbow, and they went back to their dark business. Wow, that's a lot of TV. That's a lot at once. How fun, though. Oh, yeah, that's a lot of movie, too. I know people are always like, Lord of the Rings takes so long, but there's 8 of those. Not just 3. And the movies aren't as long as the Lord of the Rings movies, but there are more of them. I lost my place. Excitable little fellow, said Gandalf, as they sat down again. Gets funny queer fits, but he is one of the best, as fierce as a dragon in a pinch. If you have ever seen a dragon in a pinch, you will realize that this was only poetical exaggeration applied to any hobbit, even to Old Took's great-granduncle Bulrorer. Whoa. It's hard to say. He was so huge for a hobbit that he could ride a horse. He charged the ranks of the goblins of Mount Graham in the Battle of the Greenfields, and knocked their king, Gulfumbol's head clean off with a wooden club. It sailed 100 yards through the air and went down a rabbit hole. And in this way, the battle was won, and the game of golf was invented at the same moment. In the meanwhile, however, Bulrorer's gentler descendant was reviving in the drawing room. After a while, in a drink, he crept nervously to the door of the parlor. This is what he heard. Gloin speaking humph, or some snort, or more or less like that. Will he do you think? It is all very well for Gandalf to talk about this hobbit being fierce, but one shriek like that in a moment of excitement would be enough to wake the dragon and all his relatives and kill the lot of us. I think it sounded more like fright than excitement. In fact, if it had not been for the sign on the door, I should have been sure we'd come to the wrong house. As soon as I clapped my eyes on the little fellow bobbing and puffing on the mat, I had my doubts. He looks more like a grocer than a burglar. Then Mr. Baggins turned the handle and went in. The Took side had won. Suddenly he felt he would go without bed and breakfast to be thought fierce. As for the little fellow bobbing on the mat, it almost made him really fierce. Many a time afterwards, the Baggins part regretted what he did now, and he said to himself, Bilbo, you were a fool, and you walked right in and put your foot in it. Pardon me, he said. If I have overheard the words that you were saying, I don't pretend to understand what you were talking about, or your reference to burglars, but I think I am right in believing, this is what he called being on his dignity, that you think I am no good. I will show you. I have no signs on my door. It was painted a week ago, and I am quite sure you have come to the wrong house. As soon as I saw your funny faces on the doorstep, I had my doubts, but treat it as the right one. Tell me what you want done, and I will try it. If I have to walk from here from the east in the east and fight the wild werewolves in the last desert, I had a great-grandfather, a great-great-great-grand-uncle once, Borrower took, and Yes, yes, but that was long ago, said Gloin. I was talking about you, and I assure you there is a mark on this door. The usual one in the trade, or used to be. Burglar wants a good job, plenty of excitement, and reasonable reward. And that's how it is usually read. You can say expert treasure hunter instead of burglar if you like. Some of them do. It's not the same to us. Gandalf told us that there was a man of the sort in these parts looking for a job at once, and that he arranged for a meeting here this Wednesday tea time. Of course there was a mark, said Gandalf. I put it there myself, for very good reasons. You asked me to find the 14th man for your expedition, and I chose Mr. Baggins. Just let anyone say I chose the wrong man or the wrong house, and you can stop at 13 and have all the bad luck you like, or go back to digging coal. Thank you. Twitter is just kind of dead. I don't know. I started off as more of a like Animal Crossing streamer, and then I've kind of got bored of cozy games, so I've been doing other stuff, and because of that, a lot of my followers just don't watch my stuff anymore, but that's okay. I'm having fun. It's more of a hobby thing for me. It's more fun to just do whatever I want. Anyway, I am actually planning on playing Animal Crossing, streaming Animal Crossing soon here, because I wanted to stream some of my favorite Switch games before the new, like the Switch 2 Direct next week. I think it's a week from tomorrow. Oh. Well, no worries. I'm mostly a PC gamer myself. I really only play Animal Crossing on my Switch, and that's it. And some like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but other than that, I play everything else on Steam. Like right now, I've been playing through Final Fantasy 10 or 7 remake, and I've been playing Okami for the first time. That's been really fun. So, yeah, I like Animal Crossing. And no other cozy game compares. I know lots of people like Stardew Valley, but it's not really for me. I've tried to like it. I've tried playing it a few times, and I just don't get into it. I don't know. Oh, really? Well, hey. I don't think you're ever too old for video games. They're always fun. He scowled so angrily at Gloin that the dwarf huddled back in his chair, and when Bilbo tried to open his mouth to ask a question, he turned and frowned at him and stuck out his bushy eyebrows, till Bilbo shut his mouth tight with a snap. That's right, said Gandalf. Let's have no more argument. I've chosen Mr. Baggins, and that ought to be enough for all of you. If I say he is a burglar he is, or will be, when the time comes. There's a lot more in him than you guess, and a deal more than he has any idea of himself. You may, possibly, all live to thank me yet. Now, Bilbo, my boy, fetch the lamp and let's have a light on this. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I feel like so many people are just like, have to have an opinion on what other people are doing. And, I don't know. It's more fun to just do what makes you happy. Oh, yeah, that's hard too. There's some games I just don't play because they're multiplayer. I'd rather play by myself. Except for with my husband, though. I like playing stuff with him. But playing games with, like, random strangers always kind of stresses me out. On the table, in the light of a big lamp with a red shade, he spread a piece of parchment, rather like a map. This was made by Thror, your grandfather, Thorin, he said in answer to the dwarves' excited questions. It is a plan of the mountain. I don't see that this will help us so much, said Thorin disappointedly after a glance. I remember the mountain well enough and the lands about it, and I know where Mirkwood is and the Withered Heath and where the great dragons bred. This is a dragon marked in red on the mountain, said Balin, but it will be easy enough to find him without that if we ever arrive there. There is one point that you haven't noticed, said the wizard, and that is the secret entrance. You see that rune on the west side, the hand pointing to it from the other runes? That marks a hidden passage to the lower halls. Look at the map at the beginning of this book, and you will see the runes. This is the map. It has the picture. Oh, nice. That is nice to not lose money. It's hard, sometimes when you're buying a game because you're like, I'm not sure if I'm going to like this or not. Then you're like, oh, darn it, I wasted all this money on it. Because, even you can even like watch other people play and be like, oh, that looks fun. And then you like play it for a little bit and then never play it again. It may have been secret once, said Thorin, but how do we know that it is secret any longer? Old Smaug has lived there long enough now to find anything there is to know about those caves. He may, but he can't have used it for years and years. Why? Because it is too small. 5 feet high through the door, and 3 may walk abreast, say the runes. But Smaug could not creep into a hole that size, not even when he was a young dragon. Certainly not after devouring so many of the dwarves and men of Dale. It seems a great big hole to me, squeaked Bilbo, who had no experience of dragons and only of hobbit holes. He was getting excited and interested again, so that he forgot to keep his mouth shut. He loved maps, and in his hall there was a large one of the country round with all his favorite walks marked on it in red ink. How could such a large door be kept secret from everybody outside, apart from the dragon, he asked. He was only a little hobbit, you must remember. In lots of ways, said Gandalf, but in what way this one has been hidden we don't know without going to see. From what it says on the map, I should guess there is a closed door, which has been made to look exactly like the side of the mountain. That is the usual dwarf's method. I think that is right, isn't it? Quite right, said Thorin. Also, went on Gandalf, I forgot to mention that this map went with the key, a small and curious key. Here it is, he said, and handed to Thorin a key with a long barrel and intricate words, made of silver. Keep it safe. Indeed I will, said Thorin. He fastened it upon a fine chain that hung around his neck and under his jacket. Now things begin to look far more hopeful. This news alters them much for the better. So far we have no clear idea what to do. We thought of going east as quiet and careful as we could as far as the Long Lake. After that the trouble would begin. A long time before that, if I know anything about the roads east, interrupted Gandalf. We might go from there up along the river running, went on Thorin, taking no notice. And so to the ruins of Dale, the old town in the valley there, under the shadow of the mountain. But we none of us like the idea of the front gate. The river runs right out of it through the great cliff at the south of the mountain. This is hard because it's a lot of places and configuring of stuff. And out of it comes the dragon too, far too often unless he has changed his habits. That would be no good, said the wizard, not without a mighty warrior, even a hero. I tried to find one, but warriors are busy fighting one another in distant lands. And in this neighborhood, heroes are scarce or simply not to be found. Swords in these parts are mostly blunt, and axes are used for trees, and shields as cradles or dish covers. And dragons are comfortably far off, and therefore legendary. This is why I settled on burglary, especially when I remembered the existence of a side door. And here is our little Bilbo Baggins, the burglar, chosen and selected burglar. So now let's get on and make some plans. Yeah, that makes sense. No money, no feeling like you're contributing. That's kind of funny. That sounds kind of exhausting. And I would get so dizzy spending that much. Okay. Very well then, said Thorin. Supposing the burglar expert gives us some ideas or suggestions. He turned with mock politeness to Bilbo. First, I should like to know a bit more about things, said he, feeling confused and a bit shaky inside, but so far still tookishly determined to go on with things. I mean, about the gold and the dragon and all that, and how it got there, and who it belongs to, and so on, and further. Bless me, said Thorin, haven't you got a map? And didn't you hear our song? And haven't we been talking about all this for hours? All the same, I should like it plain and clear, said he, obstinately, putting on his business manner, usually reserved for people who tried to borrow money off him. and doing his best to appear wise and prudent and professional and live up to Gandalf's recommendation. And I should like to know about risks, out-of-pocket expenses, time required, and remuneration and so forth. By which he meant, what am I going to get out of it, and am I going to come back alive? Oh, very well, said Thorin. Long ago, in my grandfather Thor's time, our family was driven out of the far north, and came back with all their wealth and tools to this mountain on the map. It had been discovered by my far ancestor Thrain of old, but now they mined and tunneled, and they made hunger halls and greater workshops. In addition, I believe they found a good deal of gold and a great many jewels too. Anyway, they grew immensely and rich and famous, and my grandfather was king under the mountain again, and treated with great reverence by mortal men who lived to the south and were gradually spreading up the running river as far as the valley overshadowed by the mountain. They built the merry town of Dale there even though in those days. Kings used to send for our smiths and reward even the least skillful most richly. Fathers would beg us to take their sons as apprentices and pay us handsomely, especially in food supplies, which we never bothered to grow or find ourselves. Altogether, those were good days for us, and the poorest of us had money to spend and to lend, and leisure to make beautiful things just for the fun of it, not to speak of the most marvelous and magical toys, the like of which is not to be found in the world nowadays. So my grandfather's hall became full of armor and jewels and carvings and cups, and the toy market of Dale was the wonder of the north. Undoubtedly, that was what brought the dragon. Dragons steal gold and jewels, you know, from men and elves and dwarves, wherever they can find them, and they guard their plunder as long as they live, which is practically forever unless they are killed, and never enjoy a brass ring of it. Indeed, they hardly know a good bit of work from a bad, though they usually have a good notion of the current market value. I'm just picturing this dragon at like a a stock market and being like, I see, this is the current market value of gold. I don't know why that image to me is so funny. I lost my place. That was so funny. They usually have a good notion of the current market value, and they can't make a thing for themselves, not even men a little loose scale of their armor. There were lots of dragons in the north in those days, and the gold was probably getting scarce up there, with the dwarfs flying south or getting killed, and all the general waste and destruction that dragons make from going bad to worse. There was a most especially greedy, strong, and wicked worm called Smog. One day he flew up into the air and came south. The first we heard of it was a noise like a hurricane coming from the north, and the pine trees on the mountain creaking and cracking in the wind. Some of the dwarfs who happened to be outside, I was one luckily, a fine adventurous lad in those days, always wandering about, and it saved my life that day. Well, from a good way off we saw the dragon settle on our mountain in a spout of flame. Then he came down the slopes, and when he reached the woods they all went up in fire. By that time, all the bells were ringing in Dale, and the warriors were arming. The dwarves rushed out of their great gate, but there was a dragon waiting for them. None escaped that way. The river rushed up in a steam, and a fog fell on Dale. And in the fog, the dragon came on them and destroyed most of the warriors. The usual unhappy story was too common in those days. Then he went back and crept in through the front gate and routed out all the halls and lanes and tunnels, alleys, cellars, mansions, and passages. After that, there were no dwarfs left alive inside, and he took away all their wealth for himself. Probably, for that is the dragon's way, he had piled it all up in a great heap far inside, and sleeps on it for a bed. Later, he used to crawl out of the great gate and come to night to Dale, and carry away people, especially maidens, to eat, until Dale was ruined and all the people dead or gone. What goes on there, I don't know for certain, but I don't suppose anyone lives nearer to the mountain than the far edge of the lake. Oh my gosh, of the long lake nowadays. Hello, welcome. Oh, thank you for this stretch. Oh my gosh, I'm just so zoned in. Ugh. Thank you. Right? But they want to live in the mountain. That's the thing. They want to move back. The few of us that were well outside sat and wept in hiding, and cursed Smog, and they were unexpectedly joined by my father and my grandfather with singed beards. They looked very grim, but they said very little. When I asked how they got away, they told me to hold my tongue, and said that one day in proper time I should know. After that we went away, and we have to earn our livings as best we could, and down, oh my gosh, we've run up and down the lands often enough, sinking as low as blacksmith work or even coal mining. But we have never forgotten our stolen treasure, and even now we have a good bit laid by, and we are not so badly off. Here Thorn struck the gold chain around his neck. We still mean to get it back and bring our curses home to Smog, if we can. I've often wondered about my father's and my grandfather's escape. I see they must have had a private side door, which only they knew about, but apparently they made a map, and I should like to know how Gandalf got a hold of it, and why it did not come down to me, the rightful heir. It's true. They could start again. And, I mean, they're talented enough. It sounds like they could do this anywhere. I did not get a hold of it. I was given it, said the wizard. Your grandfather Thor was killed, you remember, in the mines of Moria by Azog, the goblin. Yeah, and live a long time. Well, dwarves already live a long time, I think. I'm saying that like I have any air of authority. I don't know for sure. Curse his name, yes, said Thorin. And Thrain, your father, went away on the 21st of April, 100 years ago last Thursday. 100 years ago, 250 years. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's a while. Because he did just say that his father disappeared on the 21st of April 100 years ago last Thursday. Like, that's not a long time. And has never been seen since. True, said Thorin. Well, your father gave me this to give to you, and if I have chosen my own time and way for handing it over, you can hardly blame me, considering the trouble I had to find you. Your father could not remember his own name when he gave me the paper, and he never told me yours. So on the whole, I think I ought to be praised and thanked. Here it is, said he, handing the map to Thorin. I don't understand, said Thorin, and Bilbo felt he would like to have said the same. The explanation did not seem to explain. Your grandfather, said the wizard slowly and grimly, gave the map to his son for safety before he went into the mines of Moria. Your father went away to try his luck with the map after your grandfather was killed, and lots of adventures of a most unpleasant sort he had, but he never got near the mountain. How he got there, I don't know, but I found him in a prisoner in the dungeons of the necromancer. Whatever were you doing there? Asked Thorin with a shudder, and all the dwarves shivered. Never you mind. I was finding things out, as usual, and a nasty, dangerous business it was. Even I, Gandalf, only just escaped. I tried to save your father, but it was too late. He was witless and wandering, and had forgotten almost everything except the map and the key. We have long ago paid the goblins of Moria, said Thorin. We must give a thought to the necromancer. Don't be absurd. He is enemy far beyond the powers of all the dwarves put together if they could all be collected again from the four corners of the world. The one thing your father wished for his son was for his son to read the map and use the key. The dragon and the mountain were more than enough task for you. Hear, hear, said Bilbo, and accidentally said it out loud. Hear what? They all said, turning suddenly towards him. And he was so flustered that he answered, Hear what I have got to say. What's that? They asked. Well, I should say that you ought to go east and have a look around. After all, there is the side door, and dragons must sleep sometimes, I suppose. If you sit on the doorstep long enough, I dare say you will think of something. And well, don't you know, I think we've talked long enough for one night, if you see what I mean. What about bed and an early start and all that? I will give you a good breakfast before you go. Before we go, I suppose you mean, said Thorin. Aren't you the burglar? And isn't sitting on the doorstep your job, not to speak of getting inside the door? But I agree about bed and breakfast. I like 6 eggs with my ham when starting on a journey, fried not poached, and mind, don't you break 'em. After all the others had ordered their breakfast without so much as a please, which annoyed Bilbo very much, they all got up. The Hobbit had to find room for them all, and filled all his spare rooms, and made beds on chairs and sofas, before he got them all stowed, and went to his own little bed, very tired, and not altogether happy. One thing he did make his mind up about was not to bother to get up very early and cook everybody else's wretched breakfast. The tookishness was wearing off, and he was not now quite so sure that he was going on any journey in the morning. As he lay in bed, he could hear Thorin still humming to himself in the bedroom next to him. Far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day to find our long-forgotten gold. Bilbo went to sleep with that in his ears, and it gave him very uncomfortable dreams. It was long after the break of day when he woke up. That's the end of the first chapter! I love this little drawing at the end, too. Can you see that? That's really fun. I think I'm going to end here because I can only talk for so long, unfortunately. But I'm glad I did this because I'm having fun reading this aloud and then also enjoying my nice copy of The Hobbit that I don't usually read because it's kind of big and bulky. But I like it because the text is nice and big for stuff like this. And so, yeah. Happy Tolkien Reading Day. Today's I think the reason that today, the 25th of March it's because this is the day that they destroyed the ring, I think, or defeated Sauron is the 25th of March. So, that's why we celebrate today. Or I guess I do. Not everybody does. But yeah, I love Tolkien. I love the way he writes, and The Hobbit especially. I think The Hobbit is one of my favorite books of all time, and I just love the way it's written. It's so fun and silly, but like takes itself seriously enough that it's still fun to read. It's not too silly. So anyway, thank you for hanging out with me and for enjoying Tolkien with me. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining and chatting. It was a delight chatting with you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and see you later, I guess. Bye.